Hello and welcome to the February meeting of Access Europe, and today I'm very pleased to welcome back Aleksander Wojtasz, who comes from Warsaw in Poland. He's been with us twice before talking about interactive Gantt charts, and he had the honour of being the most successful in terms of views of all of our presenters so far, with his very first presentation now over 6,000 views, and his second one also with a very high number as well. So Aleksander, we have invited back, has been a very popular presenter. Change of topic this time, and he's going to be talking about how you can make use of the Edge browser control as an advanced data grid, which is going to be fully integrated with Access. Now, a lot of people I know have struggled with the Edge browser. Aleksander has gone a lot further than I think most of us have done. So, Aleksander, if you're ready, I'm going to stop sharing and let you introduce yourself properly. Please take over the screen now.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to be here third time. Thank you one more time for invitation. About myself, my name is Aleksander Wojtasz. I live in Warsaw, Poland. I'm programming in Microsoft Access for over, I'm sure, 20 years already. The recent years, I'm joining Access together with some other technologies like web technologies and the new web browser control. I'm making use of it. And I'm working in general in one of the Warsaw banking companies, but as well, I'm from time to time acting as a consultant for companies and helping in introducing some small modules in their Microsoft Access systems. So I have some versatile experience among the different business areas. Yes, and today I think we will focus on how we can use in our Microsoft Access databases the Edge control, web-based control. I will show the directional communication, so how we can send data that are in our Microsoft Access database to the web browser control, how the web browser control can run its JavaScript function to format some HTML contents, how the contents can be injected in the body of the HTML document, and further how we can react on mouse movements, how mouse movements can send back the data, some portion of data from HTML document to Microsoft Access, so we can make use again from the, for example, some data pointed by mouse pointer in the HTML document, so we can further use that data in Microsoft Access. So we have full two-directional communication. First, I will present the sample project, because for this meeting I created some small application which actually is not the application created from beginning, but part of larger system that I developed a time ago. But this example is fully independent, and it is just for visualization and demonstration how we can use this web browser control on some real data. These example databases are available to download at the Access User Group website. Colin will provide the hyperlink later. And of course, all the related files, because there are the files HTML file, CSS, and JavaScript file, which are needed to run our HTML document inside our web browser controller. So this is the preview how looks our form. As we see, we have 3 subforms, but what is important, these 2 subforms from the side, Microsoft Access forms, but the form and at the left, the center of the screen is the web browser control that is filled in with the data that came from Microsoft Access. Maybe now I will open the sample Microsoft Access database to present how the form is working and explain more what is going on here. So initial screen of this sample project is kind of small form. We have a list of 12 projects. We can think like there are some purchases done for the company, and we can review what was purchased and what was the price, what was the category of the purchased item, and so on. So to select any of those projects, we can select position on the list and double click, or just click this select button. After that, we see there appear a form which is filled in with data, and we can navigate through this form. This form on the left side is the list of the categories of the items that were purchased and summary of the amount. So total amount of all the purchased items is this. And here we have categories. So when as we see after I left click on this one of the row of here of the category, the other forms are reacting accordingly. So after I select cleaning, it is showing in the subcategory because we have subcategories related to the selected category. So for cleaning, we have heavy duty plastic bag and plastic bag. For consumable materials, we have following subcategories. For electrical, we have following categories. And as you probably notice here on this data grid, here the last two columns are category and subcategory. So whenever we select everything, we see in this huge form a long list that contains all the items that belongs to the project. But whenever we select some category, you see now this middle form only is showing the items that came from category electrical. This one, I hope my mouse pointer is visible now. So electrical, but subcategories are different. Now we see all the subcategories, but after I select subcategory, it is restricting this middle form to selected category and subcategory and so on. So if we select a subcategory, we see the items. So now we know what is the function of these two subforms. There are actually some kind of slicers. We can slice our main data to see only specific category, and within this category we can filter more to see only items for specific subcategory. And of course, if we select all, it is showing everything. We see the data are artificial data. They are semi-real data, but I replace all the sensitive information by some dummy data like account or something. But we see there are some other columns like account, supplier, date of purchase, amount, quantity, description of the goods, and preview. But because this function of this form was to review the items, if the items are really the items from the category that are allowed to be purchased, to have control over the purchase. And what is important, we can, when we move our mouse over the grid and putting our mouse pointer over some of the small pictures, but they are showing some enlarged picture. All the things here are not actually Microsoft Access, but they are HTML document, but populated with data that came from Microsoft Access. And we see this is working. And when we move our mouse out of this column preview, this preview box automatically disappear. It is made because there is MouseMove event handler, which is responsible for that. So more or less, this is the way how the sample form is working. Of course, we have a couple of projects. Each project has its own list of the goods that were purchased. We can filter in the same way as earlier. We see some of the items doesn't have their preview, but majority of them have picture that is illustrating the goods that were purchased. All right, so it is more or less the instruction how the sample file is working, but now maybe we can go more in the details. What is the structure of the project? So I will first describe the structure, and later we'll go into the code and the interaction, which is between the Microsoft Access and Edge controller.
Could you just go into design view and just, because people are asking what the form, so they can see that it's an HTML.
So I will switch this form to design, and as we see, these two side forms are just subforms, which are data grid subforms, but this one is, as we see, is the type Edge browser control, which some following event handlers, but else it is pointing to some address. This address is on my hosting but later I will show that this HTML document can't be hosted as well from local file system. It is only necessary to change this address from internet address to local file system address. I will show later how together with this, there are actually two sample files provided, which first one is called sample project hosting, which is taking this HTML file from web hosting, and other file is called sample project local, which is loading the HTML file and related CSS and JavaScript files from local file system. Maybe now I will show the data. Data is something like that. We have just very long table with the according column names. We have 3,616 total rows, but we have different projects. At once we are seeing around about, I'm not sure, 300 rows, but surely the system is capable to show much more data in the web browser control. All right, so we have a data table. Maybe I will come back to my presentation. This is the data structure. How looks our center of our application, which is the HTML document together with some related files. HTML, as we know, is the structure of the document. CSS is cascade style sheet, which is the styling of the HTML tags that are in the HTML document. And of course, there is JavaScript file with extension JS, and relation between these three files is following that the script is mentioned here. It needs to be in the same folder as we have main HTML document, the same with a CSS file. So these two files, CSS, JavaScript, and HTML are connected together. So the HTML is the main file, and these two files are being loaded because they are mentioned here as links in the header of the document. Maybe I will open as well, because here on the presentation we see only part of these documents, but they are not really long. So HTML document, as we see, total is 74 rows. It contains main container, table container. In this table container we have actually two childs. First is header, and second child is this is the scroll bar shadow, but this is the side rectangle that is for keeping the scroll bar. Center point of this is this row container inner. This is the place where we will be injecting the HTML structure that will be dynamically created during the application run. So HTML document initially has only 75 rows and contains only the headers and some very basic structure of the table. CSS document that describe the properties, how it should be presented, all the related HTML documents. And important as well, document that is bringing action to our static HTML file is JavaScript. And we see there is some object which is called a state object. This object is something that is attached to the window. Window is the global scope, very top level object in JavaScript. So I created something that is called appState object, which is attached immediately to the window object, so it is easy to handle it and preview in the debugger window. Yes, there are some methods. Important thing as well, it is startup script. Startup script is the script that is run on load of the application, and it is mentioned here when we have body of the HTML document. There is immediate event handler on load, which is calling that script, and some other function. I will focus on them later, but in total we have 200, a little bit above 200 rows. So this code is not really very long, but it's just enough to make some nice presentation and not make it too complicated. And now maybe I will go to the core of the system, how we are creating this HTML file. From first, we need to generate some data that will be sent from Microsoft Access to Edge controller. I have described it here. We have how the thing is created. We need to generate something that contain structure of JavaScript array. This is the result. As we see, this is the two-dimensional array. First dimension are just the rows, and in each row we have the following data. And how we this is of course a string contents. How we can achieve this result? It is not really complicated. It is just typical way of creating record set. So first we are just selecting things from this database table. Sometimes when there is category, we are adding some additional filters in the where condition. And when this string SQL is created, we are opening the record set. This is the EAO record set, and going to this record set and concatenating the data. Sometimes when there are the data numerical, we are formatting them accordingly to add some spaces between thousands and so on, and limit only to 2 decimal places. The same with date. Date is formatted to be in the ISO standard. But yeah, so we can imagine that this function is actually responsible for iterating through the record set, and for each single row we are creating something like that. We are creating just the string. And when this is the first step for preparing it. I named this slide preparing JSON data because this notation of this array is correct JSON data. So it is important because later we can parse from this string to JSON. We can convert again such a string to array object at the JavaScript. Okay, so what is important when we, because we are calling some function in the script, and is a function need to, and the string is parameter. So single quotes are the limitators of the parameter, but inside we cannot make single quotes anymore. To avoid this, we are using something that is called escape character. Escape character is just we are changing any single quotes to something like that. So slash and quote. It is assumed that this is just single quote, but for the moment of transportation, this string is converted to such a way. So each single quote is converted to this escape character. And the final moment before we launch the data from Microsoft Access application to our web browser control is creating the command. And command is like that. The com is command, and we are calling this function that is called. This is our object I showed earlier. Window it is global object in JavaScript. Upstate object is the object I created earlier, and update HTML table is the function in our script. And inside this function, we are putting actually the data that were created here. So it is the way, this is the immediate window in Visual Basic. How, if we would like to see how the whole command looks like, it is the way we have update HTML table and open parenthesis, single quote. All that this thing is the long parameter. This parameter can be very long, and it is not problem. It is working smoothly. Yes, and this is the close parameter, close single quote, which is closing the long string parameter. So this is how look the command that we are launching from Access database to web browser. And we are just calling this command with use of the method ExecuteJavascript. Maybe I will show more of this update HTML table. This is the function. I will come back to our Visual Studio Code, and this is the JavaScript. We have the function here. This is this function, this window state object update HTML table. It is mentioned here as function, and it is taking this parameter is actually the parameter that is our data, the two-dimensional table. All right, so we see how this looks now in the code, but interesting part is debugging, because I wanted in this session to debug. So maybe now I will go step by step on this each single step, how the things are working. So I will go to the project window and put the debugger in the place where the data are actually formatted. I'm opening the code and going to the function. This is the function where we are formatting. This is called prepare table data. Sometimes are given category and subcategory, but not necessarily. Sometimes this category is all, which is not making any filters, but important part is this is creating SQL, string SQL. And I opened here in Visual Basic Editor two more helping windows. One with probably most of you knows that, but it's worth mentioning that local window is some preview of the local variables that are shown during the debugging process, and immediate is for our convenience. We can make a preview or run some short commands to make some additional debugging process. So I put here the breakpoint. I will now run the more time the form. First, I will put the marker. I will come back here later. Oh, maybe now it's better. So I'm trying. Maybe I will find something that has probably this plastic bag is good example. We have 4 records. So after I click this, we'll observe how those 4 records are being sent to our web browser control. So now I'm coming back to my editor and set the breakpoint. And again, what is important, I will to see whole the process, I can make a preview of the JavaScript. So to make it, I click right on Edge browser control and click inspect. This is opening another window. This window is actually the same window as we have in our Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome, which is web dev tools. We can preview source of the document. So we see here we have our data grid HTML, we have our JavaScript, we have our CSS file. So we have this function I mentioned before, update HTML table. So I will put the breakpoint in the same way as we have in our Visual Basic code. This logic here is very similar. We have breakpoint, we have code editor. It's actually not editor, but preview. To edit this code, we need to edit it in Visual Studio Code and save and refresh the website, but still we can observe what is going on here. And here is the window where we will see our local variables. Now, there are only a breakpoint, but in this scope window, when the code is running, we will see the variables. Okay, so I will keep this one open, this preview, and I'm coming back to my Visual Studio Editor. And now we are running. So now we have, as we see in local window, we see all our variables. And now we see the filter is being created. We see whole SQL statement, which is select everything from a project data where category and subcategory are following order by. And now we will be looking in this JSON string. This JSON string is now empty, but after I'm going to, because this one, this is the debug menu. I can go step by step and observe what is going on each single line. We see here the string is being formatted. So this string is formatted now, second line, and so on. So I will skip this process by clicking here. I will set up another breakpoint and play to, we have everything. And now to see what we have in our variable JSON string, I can make it like this. I can question mark JSON string, and we see we have, I will show maybe in Notepad, it is better to paste, but as you see, we have this data. So this one is the beginning of the array. This is the first record. This is the second record and fourth record. And I think it is not yet because the ending of the string is the closing is here. So I need to go 1, 2, 3 steps further. Yes, so we have formatted the the string, and now it is the place where we are changing these single quotes into double quote, and before double quote we are putting this slash to have this escape character. These 3 lines are only for my convenience, just to get rid of line breaks and tabulator, but it is not really necessary for correct formatting. So now, to see what we have in this JSON string, I will click one more time this, and we see we have this content of the variable has changed a little bit. I'm coming back to the Notepad because Notepad is more convenient to observe. We see all the single quotes are now changed to this escape character, which is slash and double quote. This is the first line. We can see this is the end of second line, and so on. So here we have the data that are formatted with the escape characters, and we are going further. So now the data are created. Now it is the place after I put my mouse over the variable, we can see the little preview what is inside. And of course here in the local window we see as well, this window is not showing all the contents, but we can see what is going on, and to have more, we can use our immediate window. So now we are wrapping this JSON data with this function call, which is called this Windows update, this update HTML table, our function. And now the whole command is completed. Maybe I will use this immediate window to see what is inside. All right, and I will copy one more time to Notepad. So we'll see, because it is the gradual process of preparing the data for HTML documents. So we see this one is the call of the function. This is the beginning. Inside we have this very long parameter, and at the very end we have the closing of the function call. So this is the complete parameter that is for execute JavaScript command. So I'm coming back to our editor, and now this is very small step. We are running this execute JavaScript, and this execute JavaScript is running the JavaScript function that is called update HTML table. So I'm clicking this step over, and this magic came, which is jumping me immediately to this DevTools. DevTools is the window that is at the side of web browser control. It is typical window for Microsoft Edge, but similar is in Google Chrome, because they both are using the same Chromium web rendering engine. And what we see in the very similar way as we saw in Visual Basic, when we highlight the data, we see the data are the same. This JSON table data, we can even make a preview. As you notice, the data are having this slash and double quotes as the escape character, but now in the preview, this is JavaScript is interpreting correctly that the escape character need to be changed again to double quotes. And now we have theoretically the data are transferred, so transfer is fine. And what is going on here at the side of JavaScript, because we have some long string that contains theoretically the array, but we need to see what is going on. So this is a typical command for JavaScript, which is called JSON parse, which is trying to convert the string that needs to contain correct from the JSON point of view structure to real object. It is object or array. In our case, it's a two-dimensional array, but we can put here as well JSON object. So, and as you see, this editor is very similar. I mean, maybe here we have on the side, and on Visual Basic we had at the bottom, but we see we can make a preview of the data. We have the same panel, which allow us go step by step in the mode of execution code. So I'm going one step forward. Now in this JSON table object, we see we have something that is correct JavaScript array, two-dimensional array. We can even make a preview that really this is the real array, and we can even expand so we see each single cell in this array. Of course, there are our records that were earlier formatted by our Access. So now is the point where we have in our hands, we have correct array, but we need to convert this array to HTML structure. So this is the function called convert to HTML table body. This function is here, is defined in line 49, but we can use in our debugger, very known as well from Visual Basic, step into. So it is going into the function. When I click this button, we see the code has moved to the line 51, which is the first line of the convert to body, and input parameter of this function is our array. We can even click here to expand to see what we have, but surely we have the same lines that were earlier. And what we have, maybe I will make this this window on full screen. We will be using the for loop, which will be going through this array. Length is full length, so the number of iteration is from 0 to length of the array, which is 4. And for each, we can see what is going on. Current row, it is first capturing from this array single row. So in this case, it is taking the row with index 0. We can even make a preview, and this one is formatting the HTML structure. We can, this special function is both literal, inline literal. I'm not sure I'm telling it right, but it is typical for JavaScript. It's not necessary to concatenate strings as we do in Visual Basic. We can just mention it with this $sign and curly braces some variable. In this case is the some of the cell of this from this array, and we are formatting. We can see the current HTML row. After I highlight, we see this is how the variable looks like. All the variables are now in the HTML structure of the single row of the table. This is cumulated because it is current HTML row is being concatenated to the variable that is called full body. This loop will be going 4 times, so I have another breakpoint here, this red one, so I use the same. If I take a look what is inside this HTML body, we see we have all the, even we can copy string contents. It is, we are capable to copy whole the data, and I'm jumping to Notepad and doing Control V so we see this is the first row, this is the second row. This is how looks the HTML content variable. It is just structure of HTML that were generated from this memory array. And now it is important part. It is capturing this inner container. Inner container is the div element in HTML structure that is supposed to be parent of the whole, row body. So we are capturing this element, and in our HTML, we will be putting this variable. Maybe it is nice. Now I will let me show again our form, because you see now there was one only row, but after I run this code, step over one more step, this is the moment where the structure of the HTML were really injected to our body. So now, end of the function, everything is now completed. And anytime we do something more, the code is repeating over and over again. So now the code is going repeating over and over again. I will remove this debugger. So this is more or less the way how the data from Microsoft Access are coming to our web browser control. But now this is the slide, but the slides are describing the things I show in real data. It is the description how we can capture the data from Microsoft Access. We converted to array. Later we converted this array to something like HTML structure, and later we injected. Now I will tell something about the mouse event handlers. We can, in this startup script, add event handlers. Here I'm using 2 handlers. One is mouse pointer move, which is run anytime we are moving our mouse over, and we are attaching these handlers to body, because in JavaScript we have some nice feature that is called event bubbling. Even if we are moving our mouse over some of the children of some element, like in this case body. The event is first launched on this child element and going up to the parent. So finally the event is launched at the body. So body is still capturing all the mouse move and mouse down events, and we can later, even the event handler is attached to the body, still we can find what was the target element with this E, because E is the parameter that is given from the handler when it is launched. In this E, there's object, it is telling what is target element, what is X and Y position, but in our case we are finding the column 1, and we are reading from this column 1 the inner HTML, and we are putting this variable in the return variable. So later we can read the data from this variable. As you see now, I clicked at the row 202420. I do left mouse click, and what we see here, we see that user clicked on a row with this. So the data that are in HTML document are informing Microsoft Access which row was clicked. Now I clicked 414 at the end, it is that. So present how it is done, the taking the data from HTML to Microsoft Access. For this reason, we are using MouseDown event. This is on click event. First, what is nice, I'm putting sleep. On click is launched in this very same time for JavaScript and for our Visual Basic code. But JavaScript need fraction of time. It is probably milliseconds just to rewrite find the data of the current row. This is the mouse down handler. So it needs to, first it is looking what is the target. Later, if it is table row, because if we click somewhere else, it is not making the code, doesn't continue the code. So when it doesn't click on table row, it is returning. Later, it is finding in the table row something that is called column 1 and taking inner HTML and writing back this content to the JavaScript variable that is called return value. And later, there is another function defined by me that is called give return value. And this give return value is actually reading data from that object and cleaning this value and returning. So in our Visual Basic code, we need to give a little time for JavaScript to make the action, and later we are calling function that is called window appstate object give return value, which is call of this function, and this is message box that is showing the variable that was clicked. This is the mouse down event, and we have one more event, this handler that is called MouseMove. It is more or less more complicated, but in general it is looking for picture because each element has picture background. Column 14 has something like picture background, and it is capturing this picture background and injecting in this preview object, and later is showing this like opacity, because it is not immediate change visibility from true to false, but in JavaScript we have some feature that is called opacity, so we can gradually show or hide some of the elements. So maybe one more time I will present. As you see, I'm not sure if this is well shown on Zoom, but this preview window is not being shown instantly, but it is like opacity is increased. So like from the fog, it is materialized. We see it is visible, and opposite situation when the mouse is going out of this column, we are changing the opacity from 1 to 0 on some, I'm not sure, half a second period of time, and later this element disappears. So all the pictures, the photos are there on the servers. So we can have this hosting instead of using external web hosting. We can use our file system. Maybe now I will present how the same project, but how we can host our project file locally. I have it here. So I'm using this second file, this local hosting. I'm opening the project. As you notice, it takes longer but there are some tricks to make this local HTML document to be loaded from file system in the same as quickly as from the hosting. But there is some host document, and we need to mention our host there, so it is behaving more or less as web hosting. So, and it is causing the web document is being loaded faster, but it is just matter of 2 seconds or maybe 1.5 seconds. So for me, it doesn't matter. Actually, yeah, and we see this now. The document is no longer hosted from HTTP hosting, but it is MS Access /C drive. It is actually I will maybe go to that folder, see Access User Group 2026, and we see our three files and images, which are just the images, a lot of them. But yeah, so more or less it is the way how such an project implementation and bi-directional communication with HTML document can be made. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Alexander. That was wonderful. There are a lot of questions, as I expected, about how the data is being handled, and you're getting lots and lots of applause, which I hope you can see on your screen. If anyone else would like to join in at the moment, and Alexander will, I'm sure, be gratified by that. There's one more thing you might want to come back to with those charts if there's time, but I'm going to take some of the questions out of order. But I'll start with Ron McCarry, who asks whether in your original hosted version the JSON data is passed to the web server or is it processed locally?
It is processed locally, yeah, because it is tricky part, but the thing is that the data are never going outside of my computer, because the thing is that the web browser is loading from the server, from the hosting, the frame of the document, and the frame is in the cache of the web browser. I mean, in the control, but the web control is actually web browser. So we are injecting the data from our Access database to the local HTML document that is locally loaded. So the data from our Access database are never traveling outside of our computers. They are not being sent to the web hosting as it is in case of standard web application. This is only the only travel of data are from Access local file, Microsoft Access to web browser, which is as well locally. So yeah, answer is no, we are not sending any of those data outside of our computer.
There's Phil's question about how secure is the data from hackers. Because it's not going onto the server, it's totally safe, or as safe as your local computer is anyway.
Yes, exactly.
Finch asked whether, I don't know if you're aware about Tim Hall's JSON library. Would his library be a useful way of creating the JSON you use?
Yes, but because for sure, if someone will design the structure of the data in different way, not using the array structure, but kind of JSON, it's such a library that is forming the JSON string from, let's say, the dictionary, maybe multi-level dictionary, will be useful. Yeah, but in this simple example, I just made it everything like step by step without any external components. But for more advanced example, for sure, such an library will be very helpful.
I mean, I've having looked at your code, you're generating the JSON very simply anyway. So, in this particular case, right, there's a couple of questions about when you're generating your JSON, you're starting off with a single quote, replacing it with a double quote. Could you not do it in one step? Go straight to the double quote?
Yes, it would be, but in Visual Basic, putting the double quote is complicated. You can type 3 times or 4 times double quote, or you can use the CHR 34, I think. Yes, the char the ASCII code 34. This is a kind of workaround. Just I first use the single quote, and later maybe I will come back to the place where we are changing the yes. So you see, this is I hope my mouse cursor is so this one is actually replacing single quote to double quote. and later is replacing this double quote to slash double quote. So, but I did it only for the simplicities. It's much easier for me to write single quote inside. I'm not sure if we can. I can zoom in. Yes, this is the single quote, but it is a little bit horrifying for me writing double quote inside quote. I mean, the quote which is inside the VBA quote. I think CS34, CHR, I mean char 34, is better, but I saw some people are using 4 times quote. So it is only, I did it for myself, my own preferences. It is more comfortable just write single quote and later convert it to just double quote with this replace. Let me find this, or this replace statement, or this one.
So basically, personal preference, and understand that because I have exactly the same feelings about putting
Exactly.
four double quotes in a row.
Exactly.
Anyway,
For double quotes, no, it's a little nightmare for me.
yeah.
That's.
Okay.
Mhm.
Question about you're creating JSON and then you're populating the HTML document with that JSON. What's the advantages of doing it again in 2 steps? Would it be more efficient possibly to generate the HTML directly in Access?
Yes, I think it is still possible to make it, but I think this disadvantage of this is that the HTML is much longer than the JSON, because JSON actually contains except of these square brackets and the commas, it contains only data, but HTML structure contains a lot of, these additional things. And I believe, because there are some, I never tested it, but this execute JavaScript is limited to some length. So when assuming we'll generate this HTML in Microsoft Access, we will get to this limit much faster than generating it, I mean, sending to a web browser only the JSON data, but for sure it will be possible. And second thing, which is looks not, I don't like really concatenating the strings, but it's of course only my personal preferences. The concatenating strings, or here is the way how we concatenate strings in Access. Maybe someone will verify what is the length limitation, but probably it can be very long. Maybe it's not big deal. Maybe our computers are powerful enough to have thousands of characters, and this will be working fine still. Yeah, so the short answer, for me, it's just matter of comfort, but for sure we can format HTML structure immediately in Access. It is still fine.
Okay. Could you just briefly explain again how the mouse actions are returned to Access?
All right. Yes. So one more time, because in Microsoft Access we have I generated this object that is called appState. But this is not object from JavaScript. It's my personal object. I created it and given name to it, apps like state of the application. And in this startup script, I added to this object one member, which is called return variable. Return value. This is member of this state object, and initially it is empty. But when we do our mouse down, pointer down action, this is the handler pointer down, we are first capturing the inner HTML from the column 1, and later we are writing to this variable that is called return value, the contents, the data that are taken from this column 1. So since that moment we rewrite, and it takes, I'm not sure, 20 milliseconds. So we are identifying which row it is. We are finding in this row column number 1. We are taking from column number 1 inner HTML, and here we are writing this to this variable. So in our Microsoft Access, we need to make some little delay, which is allowing the JavaScript code to take this action. And after that, we are running another command, making mouse click. So now we are running this command. It is Windows appState give return value. And give return value is a function in our JavaScript code. This function is defined here give return value, which is actually returning the value that was captured by this JavaScript code. So this is actually the place in Microsoft Access. We are R value equals retrieve. We are calling this method because we have actually two methods in Edge browser controls, but enough to is very nice. Retrieve a JavaScript value, and this code is giving back the data. And here we have the data, and later we are just showing this data here. So we are calling this function give return value, and this function is here give return value, and it is capturing data that are stored in the state object.
I think I've covered nearly all the questions. I'll give you 2 minutes of this bit if you can. Would you very quickly show that a possible follow-up to this, your charting bit?
Yes, because I'm using this technique not only with datagrid, but there's chart JS library that can show us the animated charts, and you see this is the way how we can use it. Here we have, of course, Microsoft Access, and below we see the charts, and the charts are animated, and it is the same. Basically, the frame of the project is the same. First, the Microsoft Access is formatting data, injecting those data to, there are multiple charts, so each chart is getting its own data, and using the method of the library to present the data in form of chart. This is the way we can use a more extended way cooperation between HTML document with JavaScript with some components, JavaScript libraries, and I have even something which is Google Maps. We can as well do the same. It is showing, presenting the location of the clients in the map. So this is the same structure. We have access, we have HTML document that is only loaded locally, and the data are going from access to HTML document, and document have some Google Map component, JavaScript component that is showing the location on the map. But generally, there's a lot of possibilities we can use this technique.
Thank you. Right, I hope that's intrigued some people, that little brief review there. Those of you who saw Thomas Muller's Better Access charts using JavaScript will be familiar with some of the ideas there. If you would like to see Alexander come back another time to build on that idea, please would you say yes or yes please in the chat, and if we get enough support we can probably persuade Alexander. Alexander, are you looking at the chat?
Oh, I see, 81. Oh my God. So
I think nearly everyone here has actually responded in the chat there. Right, we'll talk about that another time then. So, right, the files can be downloaded, as always, from either my website, AEU48, it's the 48th meeting, or from the longer address there that I'm not going to try and read out. And you will get both the hosted version of this, which will have all the images, and also the local file that you can play with and adapt to in order to load your own data. You'll get the 3 files: the HTML file, the basis of which is just the column headers, the CSS file to actually develop the structure, and also you will get the JavaScript file as well. You can get all of those from my website, and also a PDF of the presentation. Thank you yet again, Alexander, for an excellent presentation. And as I say, hopefully we will see you again later this year or next year to do some more on this. Right, next month again we have another presenter returning to us, Chris Arnold, and we had a presentation a few months ago where somebody talked about disconnected ADO record sets, and I can't remember who that was now, but it was Chris then said if we want to I can actually talk more about that. So Chris is going to be coming next month to talk about those. Chris, are you able to turn your microphone on? Give us a couple of minutes explanation about what you're going to cover.
Yeah, so what ADO record sets are, where you can use them in Access, what types they are. There's the 2 basic types, connected and disconnected. I'll probably be focusing more on the disconnected ones and comparing those with arrays, collections and dictionaries, plus of course the other way of using a straightforward DAO record set, the temp table or a temp table. So that's basically what I'll be be looking at doing some comparisons and provide one or two practical demonstrations of where you might use a disconnected ADO record set in things like combo row sources, for example.
And it's also a good way of getting additional security if you want to, because you don't have to have a record source that's actually loaded with your form or whatever, so you can increase the security. Thank you very much indeed. Let's come back to this month's presentation. Alexander, lots and lots of requests for him to return, as I said, to deal with the charts and so on through here. Are there any questions that I glossed over, didn't cover? If there are, please put your microphones on now.
Aid did have an outstanding question which he left in the chat.
He did. I wasn't sure if it didn't sound like your question now. I've lost the chat. If you can see the chat and find his question, Neil.
He said at 5850 into the presentation, odd that there was code to remove carriage turn, line feed, and a horizontal tab completely. Might this not result in two separate words of text being joined together to replace them with a single changed word? I think he was saying that he spotted that you'd done a replacement of carriage turn line feeds with nothing, I think, taking out, probably deprettifying the JSON, I don't know.
Exactly, but even without this replacement of this, carriage return, the JSON would be formatted well, but it will be too much, enter characters, new line characters in the code, so it was resulting the table were not equal, the rows height were not equal, so it was just cosmetic to make it looks better, but it was not even not directly affecting of the JSON.
I must admit, I use a similar system to Alexander in several of my apps, where I do a whole series of structured replacements to actually get around these sort of problems. I haven't had issues, and I've tested very thoroughly. Obviously, I haven't tested this code very thoroughly, but Alexander has tested it. I don't think there's a big issue here. Any other questions from anybody else? Chris?
Yeah, I've got one question. I missed the beginning of your presentation. I was stuck in another meeting. But when you create the HTML, are you saving that to disk, or are you just reading it straight into memory?
It is no. It is always somewhere, safe somewhere. First variant is just the HTML is web hosting, because the HTML is just at the beginning, it contains only the container structure. It doesn't contain any of the data. And the second variant is the local hosting, means that you can put this HTML file together with CSS and JS file somewhere in your file system, like in C drive, in some subfolder, and later you need to mention in the HTML in the web browser control, the address of the file. So you can precise the address in the local file system. So, but anyway, it's not created in the memory, but the document is physical file loaded from hosting or from the local file system.
Okay, thank you. Neil, you had another point.
I adopted the Edge browser as late as I possibly dared, and that was still way too early. It was incredibly unstable, and I got my fingers burnt, and it cost me a lot of extra effort. Has it stabilized, or is it still a real pain to work with?
From my perspective, it looked always like this. The web browser, I would make it. It is just Microsoft Edge, which is pretty stable. It is a very mature solution. But I think the wrapper that is the glue between Edge browser and Access. Maybe at the very early beginnings it was maybe not stable. But at my computer I'm accepting all the Microsoft Access updates, but I started working with it like maybe 2-3 months after it was introduced for real purposes, and in that moment of time I never found any serious issues in the stability.
I don't think I've actually deved with it for 18 months, but it was certainly a bit troublesome last time I did.
There were a lot of issues, and after the initial flurry of fixes, it then seemed to be a abandoned in a way, while other things like Monaco were being followed up. I think there are still some bugs, and in fact there's one to do with PDF files that I've read about in the last couple of days. But be aware that if you are holding on to using the old legacy browser, IE browser, that is going to be deprecated this summer, 3 years earlier than they first said it would be, and it seems that things are already beginning to go wrong with it beyond what was before. It may well be that they're switching off features step by step, I don't know. So if you use browser controls at all, you are going to have to address the Edge browser, and if there are issues that need fixing before the IE browser is deprecated, then that needs to be brought to the attention of the Access team as quickly as possible.
Sorry, in my case, I was actually using it as a PDF viewer, and that's where all the problems were. Trying to use it as a PDF viewer rather than just as a browser window.
That used to work for me absolutely brilliantly. I'm on the beta version. Just before Christmas, I noticed I had problems with PDF files, both local and online ones, through the Edge browser control, and I thought, oh, it's just something on my machine, and I left it. And then, as I said, in the last couple of days, I've heard that there is an issue. So something that maybe needs to be followed up on. Okay. Chris, last comment?
Yeah, well, it's really just adding to that, really. One of the things that I found out, but I'm not sure how much it really matters, is that WebView 2 runtime takes a little bit. When you open a form with Edge control on it, you've got WebView 2 runtime needs to run before you can actually do anything with the control. So if you try to do something on open or on load, you're likely to fail. I'm not sure how good that advice I've had is, but
it's basically like the old wait until document complete thing. I mean, you need to make sure it's fully loaded before you do anything with it, and there's code you can do to do that. I don't know that offhand. Shreyas, your microphone's on, so I did say last question, but over to you quickly.
Yeah, only thing I found is even the document complete does not work that well if you have multiple redirects and you are waiting for figuring out when the web page ends loading. So depending on what you're trying to do, I think Edge browser works or maybe very difficult to work with.
Okay, thank you ever so much, Shreyas. Tim, he's got his hand up as well, so I'll be accommodating. Go on.
The Edge browser control, like Neil, I got myself a bit burnt with it because fortuitously only on my development machine, there is an issue with GPU acceleration when you're developing on a Windows 11 virtual machine, and I'd load up a Google Maps web address, and then the map would draw and then immediately go grey. And it transpired because it was trying to use GPU acceleration and the virtual machine didn't have it. Ran the same code on a real Windows 11 box, no problem at all, fortuitously okay for the clients. But I had to end up living with the map just going grey on me. You would load and then just go grey straight away. And then there turned out to be this ridiculous registry editing hack to try and get the GPU acceleration recognized in the browser control on a virtual machine, which then broke the Monaco editor for query SQL editing. That just wouldn't load anymore on my dev machine, and it would just be a blank screen when I edited, right click and edit SQL. So I then had to reinstall Microsoft Office all over again so that the Edge control had all of its default settings, which got the Monaco editor back, which of course is using the same control, but it knocked out my Google Maps. So, all is not rosy with the Edge control in offbeat scenarios like virtual machines.
Thank you ever so much, Tim. Your registry hack and so on, you're not talking about editing the host file, you're talking about something more complicated.
Oh, it was a nightmare trying to get it. I got it working. I got the Google Maps working in the end after a huge amount of faffing around, and something you would never do on a production machine for clients. I mean, it was only just to get it working on my dev machine.
You're not talking about feature browser emulation on the IE browser, are you?
No, this is definitely in the Edge web browser 2 control. It really, it was such an edge case situation, Colin. I just thought, sod it, I'll just cope with the maps not displaying when I'm developping. I know it works for the client, but it wasn't great.
I don't think that was a deliberate pun there, but it was an edge case. Yeah, so well done you on that. Right, okay. As a last thing I want to mention, for those of you that haven't read either my article or one of the other articles in the last couple of days, there is an issue with the free and excellent Notepad++ text editor, which has been available and widely used for many, many years, and I'm not in any way criticizing it, but the update process got intercepted by hackers. And for the last 6 months or so, until recently, any updates that you did through the Notepad++ app itself, I'm not sure about if you did it directly through the website. We've got discussions with another person who's been here about whether that happened. But basically, if you've updated via the Notepad++ app itself in the last 6 months, uninstall it and install the new secure version from the website. This article of mine gives a link to a much more detailed article which will tell you the full story. So quite a concern for all people who actually are users of that. Alexander, is there anything else that you would like to say before we go?
Yeah, I would like to say thank you very much for very kind attention. Yes, it was my pleasure to be here.
Thank you, and you've
this
just
evening.
added to a long line of outstanding presentations that we've had. Very fortunate to have managed to find people who are so good with their time. Thank you again. Right, we'll see you all, I hope, next month for Chris Arnold, and on April the 1st, we had our 50th meeting where Peter Cole will be back as well. So thank you to all for attending. See you next month.